choosing whether to try to onsight and flash or not when you're getting on something. So step number one, I think when you're warming up for the day, if you know later you're going to be trying a difficult onsight, a really valuable tactic you can use is get on your warm up, something that's pretty easy for you. Ideally one you haven't done 100 times already, that you know you're going to onsight. But then force yourself to commit to your decisions. Usually on an easy thing, we have time to like feel around and find the best sequence and find the rest stances. And we spend way more time than we would if we were just red pointing. But treat it like it's a hard onsight and commit to your decisions. And you'll get yourself into that mind space, that head space that you are committing. If you can use the hold, use it. Keep climbing. If you can do the move, do it. Don't look for the easier scenario. You might turn your 10C warm-up into 11B by doing this, but did you make it up? Did you onsight it? That's the important thing. And then you can take that faster decision-making over to the harder onsights. And you can recognize, like, did I make good decisions? Or were those just bad decisions and I was surviving, you know? You can do all of that stuff on your warm-ups if you sort of put those constraints into place and force yourself to do that. But then when you're approaching a harder route, you have to make the decision. And I think it's important to make the decision. Do you want to try to onsight or flash it? Or do you want to try to do it second try, third try? Is it a mini project? Because how you leave the ground, how you set yourself up is different for the two. If you're going up to project something or to do it second or third try, you're leaving the ground with curiosity, trying to find the best sequences, willing to say take when it makes sense to do that. But an onsight or a flash, number one, you should leave the ground with that in mind. Like I'm not going to say take unless it's a dangerous situation, which most of the time you can suss out from the ground, whether it's a boulder or a root. You know where the bolts are, you know how to pad the landing. And if you are trying to onsight, pad the landing well. Don't wait for, like, you get up to the crux and you're like, oh, I might swing this way when I fall off. Figure that out on the ground. Really pay attention to where the fall zones might be. Make sure it's padded out. Make sure you've told your spotters and your belayers, I'm trying to onsight. Don't yell beta at me. And if the crag is crowded, you might even want to talk to the people around you who are also trying this route and say, don't feed me beta. Don't say anything while I'm up there. I'm trying to onsight. And
well, I
that
think
puts
just
a
to
little
pause
more
there for a
pressure on
second.
you.
Right. I mean, having been at some popular crags at the Red here recently, as we're into October days, and every route is 4 deep.
Yeah.
It's quite common, and I don't think it's malicious, but it's quite common for people to just get psyched and want to yell some beta towards people. And you don't know if you come up and somebody's climbing, you don't know, they might be going for the onsight. So I think as a general rule, it's always nice to ask somebody first, hey, do you want some beta? Even if they're on a rest on a route or they're tying in, hey, do you want some beta? That gives them the opportunity to say yes or no. All right, y'all, just a quick second here to shout out today's sponsor, which is the Kaya Climb app. If you're bouldering outdoors, or if you like to go check out bouldering areas, this app needs to be in your kit. I love it so much. They work with local experts to curate incredible guidebooks for over 50 of the top bouldering areas around and counting. We're talking GPS pinned coordinates to all the blocks, accurate descriptions, beautiful photos, and one of my favorite features, over 300,000 community uploaded beta videos. It's so good, it's so well designed. Hit that link below to try it for free. And if you upgrade to Kaya Pro to get even more features, well, use that link and you're going to get 20% off. All right, get out there and crush. Let's get back to the video. But you brought up a really good, I think, point there, an interesting point on perhaps one of the reasons why there's this disparity between a flash and a red point of being maybe a number grade on YDS. And at least for me, this applies. And that's fear of falling, fear of I don't know if that's going to be good up there. Am I going to spike? Like once you've been on a route a handful of times, you tend to get a little bit more comfortable moving more fluidly, taking falls, taking whips, these kinds of things, which you don't. So is there anything that you recommend to your clients or that you implement when you're going for a hard flash to help try to remove some of the fear so that you can climb with as much flow as possible, knowing that, that's one of the challenges of flashing is that you're not going to know everything, right?
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of practice. It's not something you're going to click into just immediately the first time you try it. And for me, number one, it's helpful to have a routine before I get on the route. If I know I'm going to try to onsight something, I go through my hard climbing routine, which is take my harness off, put it back on. I feel like I'm suiting up. When I'm tying in, I feel like I'm preparing to go to battle. So having that routine is great. Making sure that you've stood on the ground, you've looked at everything you can possibly discern, spend time on it, try to come up with worst case scenarios, have plan Bs if they're available there. I think all of that is really important to getting rid of that fear. And I think that fear sort of all comes down to the unknown, right? Where it's way scarier to make a big move that you can't reverse to a hold that you don't know what that hold is like. It could be a jug, it could be a crimp, it could be a sloper. I have no idea what's up there. So I'd rather just say take and try it timidly a couple times, And over time, once you do a slightly harder onsight than you've done before, and then another slightly harder onsight than you've done before, and you've committed over and over, even if you aren't successful on the onsights, if you've fallen while committed, if you've stuck a few moves that you otherwise would have said take on, that builds you up to being able to do it more and more often and to call upon it immediately when you need it. And that's so valuable in getting rid of that or dealing with that fear of the unknown.
Yeah. Yeah, great. I mean, how great for us just, mentally to try to push ourselves a little bit further out of that comfort zone, which then widens the comfort zone so that when we're on the sharp end the next time, we're a little less gripped. You mentioned kind of climbing style there, and maybe this is a good time to explore that if you agree, but this notion of being comfortable climbing dynamically and not quite knowing if it's a move that you could reverse, versus a little bit more static, a little bit more timid, and how does that play into whether a flash or onsight attempt is going to be a success or end in pumping off of the route, perhaps a few moves before the chains?
Yeah, certainly in some areas you'll be rewarded by one style or the other, and whatever your personal style is going to, always work for you a little better. But as you get into harder and harder things, you're certainly going to find more dynamic moves or more moves that are really difficult for you. And I think just that the ability to come into a situation where the result is unknown, I don't know what that hold is like, and then to convince yourself what matters here is the level of effort that I give it, not what the hold is. So if I give it, as much effort as I can, and it matches the required level of effort for this move or this route or whatever, then I'm through it. So why shouldn't I just give it? I think that's the conversation you're having to constantly have with yourself, especially early in the onsighting process of learning to onsight or learning to flash, is committing and believing that you can do that next move. And again, it's a practice thing. You'll build it up over time by sticking moves you didn't think you could stick.